why do we feel to empower women we have to emasculate men? And I was like,
so wrong. Yeah.
So often it's kind of like, is it this or is that? You know, the future is female. It's like, well, the future's male and female.
And I've always grown up with strong males around me who, in fact, uplifted women and said, look, take up space, do what you need to do to get ahead.
Sometimes it's even to do with men's exposure to women. So I think how much they've grown around
A strong woman,
who may be defined as strong matters.
Welcome to the Magnify Conversations. My name's Ruth, and I'm the founder and CEO of Magnify.
And my name's Rachel, and I'm one of the hosts of this podcast.
Magnify is a global community and content platform focused on equipping women like you to grow in and impact your sphere of influence. We truly want to see you thrive in all areas of life and want to display what faith can look like at the centre of that too.
We started the conversations because we wanted to have real discussions about things that matter. Money, relationships, and work, all through the lens of faith and our relationship with God.
Ultimately, we know as multifaceted women, things are rarely one size fits all. So we speak with many different women who are from our community and hear their stories. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Magnify Conversations.
In today's episode, we sat down with Jayne Doherty to dig into the question, are men intimidated by strong women?
Jayne is the co-founder and CEO of Trinity Healthcare Plus Limited. She is a practice educator and works with community organisations to help drive them forward.
Jayne didn't shy away from talking about the reasons why men might feel intimidated or emasculated at times and how we can embrace femininity without dulling ourselves down.
Let's get into the conversation.
So, ladies, I'm really excited for this conversation. Jayne, it's so good to have you back on the conversation.
So good to see you.
We're so good to have you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
And we're going to have an amazing, well, I think it's going to be amazing, conversation. We're going to be looking around the question, are men intimidated by strong women? Big question.
Controversial question.
Controversial question. And I'm sure it's not going to be a straightforward answer. So we want to have an opinionated but kind of balanced conversation around that from our experience too, and maybe looking a bit about femininity and masculinity and how that plays into it too. But to start with, I want to do a bit of an icebreaker, couple of questions, you can both join in before we get into our conversation. So first thing is, an item of clothing that you loved at the time, but you regret wearing now.
That's like every year of my life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yes.
Yeah, it might be the leotards, right? So it went from the dance school to wearing it out, and like, because of the Lady Gaga.
Describe what it looks like.
The leotards.
So it's full leg or it's
No, it's
short?
a high leg, like the full
did you wear it
dance,
with?
my dance leotards from like gymnastics and dance class.
Did you just put a blazer over it?
Yeah, basically. It was the time of Gaga, guys, single ladies. I thought that was so easy, like legitimate, but looking back, whoa. Like, never bring that out again.
Jayne?
So, yeah.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. Trying to think back to my teens and like early 20s, things I used to wear that I know I regret now.
Yeah.
I used to wear like boots with everything, like high heel boots with everything. And I remember one time going to Ghana in December and wearing boots. I know, I'm ashamed of myself. I just thought it was a thing back then, like it was just sexy to wear. So yeah, one time in Ghana in December, I wore boots. Yeah, so yeah, I regret that.
That's so funny. And it's so hot in December.
It's so hot.
I wish we had a picture to show us.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, this is a good one. A trend that you really dislike.
Ooh, there's so many, like fashion trends.
Yeah, fashion trend.
Yeah. I don't know, do you have one, Rachel?
I don't know if I do.
Yeah, I'm just...
Fashion. I don't know. It depends. Do you know what though? I can't deal with is like the ridiculous eyelashes that like reach out and touch you, eyelashes. Because I love lashes. I'm a big lash girl, but the young girls these days, like they could fly away, honey. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. Like
So I mean, if we're doing beauty trends, I have so many. There are fashion trends, but beauty trend. One that I really don't like at the minute, but I know it's nice for the catwalk, but for normal people, I'm like, please stop. skinny eyebrows. Sorry, I took so long growing back my eyebrows. No, I'm not going to be plucking them again. But really like blonde eyebrows too.
I think that's so
I
creative.
get it for the cat. Nah.
But I think for certain people it works.
Yeah, I
Who
do
are
like
these people,
it.
though, Jayne? Fashion people. That's
No,
it,
I do
though.
like it.
Not the common people.
Not the common people. Not the everyday type
Not
of
the
person.
common people.
Yeah.
Not us, the common people.
Yeah.
Any fashion trends that you're just like, nah, it's not for me.
Do you know what? I find fashion, like the way it goes through time, it works for a moment and then it doesn't. I just like that whole freedom to just create and explore.
Yeah.
So I think, and like you said, for every different type of person, it might work for you, but not for me. So I guess,
Yeah, it's more on style.
It's
maybe,
more on
over
style
time.
basis. Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, so Jayne, I know like you've been here before, but just give us a bit of a insight into you and your life.
Okay, so my name is Jayne Doherty. I am a CEO and founder of a healthcare company and a property investment company as well. I also have my own charity. I am a busy mum of 3, married for 12 years, been with my husband for 23 years.
Wow.
And yeah, life is just busy and fun and energetic, and I love the fact that no 2 days are the same. Always doing something different, always, you know, from football to on-site to other development to one of my care homes, just life is constant. And I love the fact that I'm always challenged to be doing different things. So life is good.
And obviously we talk about being, or not being a strong woman, but are men intimidated by strong women?
Right.
How do you even feel about being referred to as strong? Like, is that something you relate to? Is it like, nah?
I'll be honest.
How do you associate with it?
Do you know what? Growing up in a traditional African household, a strong woman is something that it's become like a norm. Like you've seen it growing up, and you've seen your parent, your mom, your sisters, your friends all be strong women. So you almost just become that woman, you know, automatically.
You emulate what you see.
It's learned behaviour.
Yeah.
Just keep it moving, keep going, make it work. But I'll be honest, in my adult life, I've tried to dismantle everything associated to that strong Black woman, in the sense that I can be assertive, I can be opinionated, I can be firm with my boundaries, I can be wildly ambitious, but equally, I want to be soft when I need to be. So at work, you know, with my businesses, I'm this way, but at home, I don't need to be that. And I feel like women have the freedom to be both. I could be an alpha feminine, but at the same time, I want to be very soft and meek when I want to be as well, because being a strong woman also means that I have vulnerabilities. Like there are times when I just want to relax, kick back, and not be a key decision maker all the time. My brain needs to rest sometimes. So.
I feel like the rhetoric though of strong women, it's like the trend. So now it's like we refute that a bit, only because there's been a lot of neglect for the people that look strong. But I think, again, I have a whole thing about language, but I think strong is a beautiful thing. It's just when we think someone is only one thing. You can only be strong, and you limit yourself, because it's good to be weak sometimes so that you can see, okay, God is real. Do you know what I mean? 100%. And life will show you that you aren't that strong anyway. So I think sometimes, even as believers, there might be a trend that we don't do this word anymore, we don't say, but actually, look, right now, I feel strong in this thing, or that's cool, but I'm not just, like Jayne is saying, I'm not just a strong woman. I'm so much more than that. You want me to cry right now? I can cry right now. You know what I mean? I can do it all. But just allowing each other and recognizing, do you know what? Everyone needs some support. Everyone, just because it looks good, actually, usually when it looks that good, they need some support. You know what I mean? So I just think, exactly. Just allowing ourselves to be flexible, to not have to be that thing all the time. I love how you said you can be at work at one thing, but you can be home and say, no, I don't know anything in this house. Like, kids, who are you? Like, you know what I mean? I just think it's okay just to let go. You know, I find it hard to let go, though. I think I'm quite a control person. You know, we discuss, like, I have a plan.
I'm agreeing, like,
I'm very much like that. But I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice when we're too much that way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because, you know, like for so many years, I'll be that control. I've planned everything out for the next how many years. We're going to this destination. The team is doing this, this strategy.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're just like, I'm exhausted.
Right.
Like, can someone come up with a good idea now? You know, because I'm tired.
This is so interesting because even like on the whole first date thing, when a man hears, I've got my life planned out, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do. That's when a man will start to say, so there's no room for me anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't really need me. So why are we here? You could pay the bill right too. Then, So it's even that like that rhetoric of actually allowing yourself to pull back. I think that's
you almost
where
set yourself up to fail when you have, because equally it's like, okay, you've got it all covered. I don't know how I can add value to your situation, you know, because you're all encompassing. And that's exhausting.
Right. I've got 3 younger sisters. So I feel like my family and my experience has been girls, right? That's just been, it's been very female. Now, thankfully, my dad and like key male, I guess, like role models have celebrated me, celebrated the strengths, the weaknesses, all of those things. Outside of my family, it's different, but I've kind of felt celebrated in that. And it's like it's what you see and what's celebrated. It's what you're saying, Jayne. But that is not the case for all men, let's just say. And then potentially like in the workplace or in different areas, that's everything we're talking about that we're saying it's good, like whether it's the strength or the decision making or sometimes needing to be a little more stoic in certain areas is not always received very well. And 100%. I think sometimes to our conversation, some men can be a little bit intimidated by that. Have either of you experienced
yes, ma'am.
that? Definitely.
Yes, I have. I think the home is where you get your values reinforced and you know, your confidence is re-energized and you go out to school or they don't want to play with me, you come home, your mom tells you you're the best thing in the world. And I think at home, I wasn't told like you're a strong woman, I was told like you're a victor in Christ, you're a champion, you know, Bamful's #1 way. So it's like, and you don't know what image is being built until you come against another image and someone says, oh, you're a bit loud. Oh, you're too much.
Aggressive.
Aggressive. You know what I mean? And things like that. So it's when you come in certain situations, then you start to realise, oh, I am perceived a certain way. And actually, for a long time, I didn't have an issue with it. When people were scared of me at university, I liked it. I was like, be scared. Like, all my flatmates were scared of me. You should be.
I wish you would.
Yeah. So I loved it, but I remember, I think my dad was saying to me, he was like, nobody wants to live with that, Sinead. Or it's like, you have an answer for everything. Like there's no room for someone to advise you, for someone to partner with you. You know, exactly. So it was just growing up in that, and I thought, oh, maybe I should think about what it means to be like a strong woman in a different way. I thought being a strong woman was being masculine. I really did. I was really aggressive, like really like, literally I come to library at uni and a lot of the boys would like move, like here comes the ACS president, you know, I'd be like, you guys don't know. You know, I was really like, but I just thought I wasn't a character I was trying to be.
Right, so that wasn't just who you were, that you were feeling that was something that you had to,
that's what I thought I had to be,
you had to adopt.
To get respect, to get things done. Yeah, just such an adopt, definitely. And
it's interesting because I remember it's only in, I've been running my business now for 8 years, so it's only when I was evolving to that phase of my life. So I feel like every season of your life requires a different version of you. So when I became, you know, a CEO and a boss babe, you know, that's when I realized that I had to exercise that masculine energy. But prior to that, I was quite introverted.
And I didn't that wasn't your natural edge before you stepped into that role.
Exactly. And I didn't find a lot of men to be combative or feel intimidated by me because I wasn't really exercising my authority then, and it was fine. But when I started voicing my opinion or saying no, that's when it became more of a challenge because a lot of men don't like that, you know. And for me, I don't find that, because as you were saying, I've always grown up with strong males around me who in fact uplifted women and said, look, take up space, do what you need to do to get ahead. You know, my dad, my brother, my husband, all these people. But then when you go into the workplace or even your husband, when you're challenging in certain ways, it's not always received in the best way. And I think the underlying tone is respect.
Yes.
You know, I feel like if you look at the media, for example, and you see all these very successful women, a lot of them aren't married or they've recently divorced or whatever the case. They can't seem to maintain a relationship because it appears the man is either resentful of their success or they can't really, you know, coexist with a woman who's that powerful. But at the same time, I find how are these messages communicated? How are conflicts resolved? And I think sometimes that's where it comes down to men not really being able to live with a woman like that.
Yeah. I think depending on their worldview, their upbringing. I find as well, and again, it's not, you know, I never want to say something as a blanket statement. Sometimes it's even to do with men's exposure to women. So I think how much they've grown around
A strong woman,
who may be defined as strong matters. Because if that's been your norm, you're kind of like, oh, my mum was like this, or my sisters are like this, or my very close friends were like this who are women. So it's kind of like, oh, we celebrate that, we empower that. It's not something to fear. I think the intimidation sometimes can come from a fear of the unknown, of how to interact with that when it's not a male. You use the word aggressive. Because have you been referred to as being aggressive?
100%, yeah. When I was in the corporate world, whenever I would challenge, it would come across as, oh, you know, your colleague felt you were aggressive the way you expressed your point. And I'm like, well, I'm being assertive, I'm being opinionated. You're taking it as aggressive, but I don't feel like I am. But equally, I think that it's a good thing. When somebody refers to you as aggressive, sometimes you need to reflect on how you're delivering your message. Because sometimes based on, you know, you might come across that way because you feel really passionate about this thing. And to them, it's translated as aggression. But sometimes if you reflect about your delivery, it could be received in a different way. Same message, just different delivery.
There's nothing wrong with the reflection. Like, you can learn from everyone. Even if, again, they got it wrong, which they probably did, but you can reflect. And I think when I realised that being a woman was a calling, and there's a way, like there's a power in being feminine. Like, God has actually called you to be a woman. When I started to read books like that no, you can use your femininity for things, then it's just, again, like using those tools but channeling them in
the right way,
the best packaging and things like that. And even the way I would speak to people, like literally just like what you said, I would change the packaging of it, you know, because we don't know all we come across. Like I always say to people, I wish when people were dating, someone could be in the corner and give you feedback afterwards and say, okay, you're a bit rude. But you know what I mean? I just think people don't know how they come across. And especially men are from Mars, right? Women are from Venus. So a man might say, how are you? A woman says, I'm fine. That is a very loaded thing, right? Fine. It means, and if you say to a man, how are you? He says, I'm fine. They probably mean it. So even the way we say things to each other can be so different and have so much meaning. But that takes grace, the willingness to understand the person as well. And I think sometimes there has been this, I think it's the media, like this battle, like men versus women. And no one's really trying to understand each other. Everyone's trying to get on top. Boss babe, hustler, I'm the boss, you know, Rick Ross. Everyone's just trying to get one up. Everyone's trying to get one up on each other.
Do you know when you reflected back, you know, you're saying about that was the feedback you got, is perhaps it was in the delivery. When you reflect back on times like that, where you've been referred to as being aggressive, have you thought to yourself, oh yeah, I could have said that differently? Or do you just think, no, they've misunderstood me? I'm sure it's mixed, right?
Yeah, exactly, it's mixed. And I think sometimes, obviously, people kind of pick things about your character that you might not want to receive. And then also there are times that you realise, okay, maybe when you unpack it, maybe I'm coming from a place of, you know, whether it's a trauma-based response or some sort of hurt, or maybe someone's done something else and someone else is on the receiving end of it. But I never see feedback as a negative thing. I think it's all about your mindset, and I'm always willing and open to receive things. Whether I like it at the time or not, I will, you know, stew over it and find out whether I did it right or wrong. But again, you know, just recognising that how you speak, how you deliver a message, you know, understanding that your words have power. as well, and using your words in the right way to build people rather than take people down. So those type of things, it's huge. And when you're managing people as well, and you realise that people have a different way of responding to information, that's a key thing as well.
Yeah, it's knowing who you're speaking to.
Yeah, and how you're speaking to them.
There's there's a proverb that says a woman builds with her hands and destroys with her mouth.
Yes.
And if you know yourself, that is, we can put so much effort into something and we can also tear you down with just the words of our mouth sort of thing. So I think especially in your position where you're managing people, how you speak to people, I think that is some of a graciousness of being a biblical, like a Christian woman, that I can literally tell you, I don't like your coffee, but in the most gracious way, like, oh my gosh, God bless you, these beans, something isn't
not doing
right.
the thing.
Something is not right, but it's not you. It's the beans. We have a way to like finesse things. You can say, oh babe, I don't really feel like doing this today, but it's just that wisdom and just watching. Even I've learned a lot from watching other women and how they speak to their husbands or they speak to their leaders, and I'm like, wow. She just got everything she wanted, and she didn't shout. She didn't take off her wig.
She didn't break a sweat.
So there is such a beauty in it. When we just tap into that strength. It's still a strength, but it's just allowing the Holy Spirit to restrain your words sometimes. All those things that
edit you a little bit.
And I get
filter. And I get that totally, but my experience has still been, right, and maybe I am very passionate, and when I'm passionate about something,
you don't want to dilute your words.
I think that to some people does come across as aggressive, right?
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, have I had to work on the delivery? Yes. Am I still working on the delivery? Yes. And when you're leading people and managing people and you know the people you're leading, it's much easier because actually, if I just go in to this person and say, okay, I'm not sure about this, they're going to interpret that as negative. Or it's not going to help them, maybe even rude. Others, that's fine. So it's kind of knowing how you lead and who you lead. But I think even when you have done your best, like thinking about how I'm going to say this, my tone, my language, I think sometimes when you are passionate, that can still come across as aggressive. So obviously we said some men might be intimidated by a stronger character or a stronger woman. Why do you think that is? Like, have you got any thoughts behind why that might be?
I think it really, the monetary thing I think in this generation is huge. So I think it was Miles Monroe who said, oh, some of you women, you drive your own car, you have your own house, you do this, you do that. What do you need a man for? And you also tell a man, I don't need you for anything. So I think a big part of masculinity is the ability to provide. It's a gift, it's a calling that God has given them as well. And when they don't have the space to do that, I think they start to think, so what use am I in this? How can I provide for this person? How can I give them what do you give to somebody that has everything? And women these days can do it all, right? So they can give birth to the child and pull the child out themselves. So can't make the child alone, but so I think it's where I think where anybody feels less than, especially a man, is how can I bring something to this when you seem to have it all? Finances is a big thing. I don't know in your experiences, any of you, where men just think, what can I contribute here? I think that's one of the challenges that we have, especially today, where finance is a huge thing. Money is everything to people. Your worth is often compared to how much you're making or what a man's not making. And a lot of women put that on men. How much do you make? How tall are you? Okay, these are the standard things I hear from like my friends is 6'6", 6 figures. Okay, what percentage of men actually have those things?
It's so true. And I think now a lot of the people that I have conversations with, it's very much, no one wants a Build-A-Bear anymore. Everybody wants, an established, man. And I think, people just don't want to grow with somebody anymore. They want somebody, because essentially everybody wants life to be made easier for them.
Okay.
And it's not easier if I'm having to support you and support myself.
Yeah.
But I think where there's so many options out there nowadays, it dilutes the value of working with someone and, you know, just developing together, growing together, evolving together. And I think that's where the challenge is. And that's why men feel emasculated because they go and date a woman, you know, she's highly educated and she's financially secure. And suddenly they feel like, what value do I bring to her situation? And that's even a lot.
Sorry, Jayne. Even faith, I don't know about either of you, but you know women are known for knowing more scriptures. The church is full of women.
Right.
That is actually very intimidating, like dating someone who is advancing in their relationship with God and the guy's like, oh, where's like Joshua? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So I've dated so many men who are like, you're basically a prophet and I'm just getting started. And that can be very intimidating. I don't know if you've experienced that, where you might be advising someone who's like wanting to date someone, but they're like, but he's not really, like he's a baby Christian. Or
so we're unequally yoked.
Yeah, oh my gosh, like unequally yoked has been spun around, like in so many different ways. But he's not really on my level. He can't really pray the way I do. And you know, those sort of things, I hear that talk even amongst Christian women a lot. And I think, again, if I was a guy, I'd say, okay, I'll take my unyoked self and hit the streets, you know what I mean? Back to the streets I go, because they don't feel they can contribute spiritually. And we also kind of cut them down or say you're not mature. So I can imagine like men feeling intimidated to date a Christian woman who knows what her calling. I remember when I met my husband, he literally used to look at me like, oh gosh. You know? Like, I remember asking him once to pray and he was like, no, I don't want to do that with you. And I was like, are you mad? Like, you will pray today. Like, I was thinking that in my head. Like, you will pray with me today, right? But I actually was like, okay, I'll pray this time kind of thing. And I remember saying to him, do you want to do devotion? He was like, what's that? I was like, Lord, help me, Lord. Do you know what I mean? But I think he was interested in growing. So that helped us. But there was a time where he thought, I need to really get it together. And with God, you can't get it together. It's a process of knowing him. So I think we have to show more grace where people are in different walks of life, but especially men, because spirituality, faith, women easily can connect, but men can't always connect immediately. And so we should be praying that they learn how to connect rather than telling them you need to, you should have known this by now, you know?
And I just think like media in the age of information has absolutely done us dirty as well. So there's an absolute caricature of what it is to be a strong woman, and then I think automatically it's easy for men to feel intimidated by that, not because they've engaged with Sinead or Jade or Rachel, but because they've got this built-up perception in their head of,
you're this way.
They seem a bit loud, or they seem like they're making a strong decision, or they seem a little like that caricature that I've seen painted. I'm already, I'm out for that reason, I'm out, but like, just a little bit, I'm already standing back. I've kind of got my back up. I already know. It's a prejudgment.
It is.
But in a way, I kind of feel sorry for men when they sit in that seat, because they're just going off kind of what's being painted to them over and over and over and over again.
And again, it's an insecurity as well, isn't it? Because obviously you don't want to go into that relationship or get to know that woman because you feel that you are less than, even before you've got to know her. And this is a thing, social media and the society as a whole is so good at putting people in certain boxes without letting us recognise that we're all more than one thing, you know, we're all multifaceted in our own different ways, but we just don't get the chance to allow people to evolve anymore. And that's a difficult thing that I find.
And it depends on what setting you're in as well. So like, Jayne, I'd love to know a bit more just in your work as well, because you're the boss, you're doing all these different things, you're working with men and women, I assume. And so people are seeing a certain side of you. Just because that's what you have to be sometimes. But that obviously doesn't mean it's who you are. It's like you said, sometimes you go home and that softness is coming through and everything. But how has that worked for you at work?
I think it's very different in, I've had positive and negative experiences. So when I was in corporate, I found that there was great examples of men that I used to work with. They gave me my promotions and they really recognized my strength even before I did. And then working for myself, like I said, I had to be very, very clear in my expectations. And sometimes that wasn't received well. And I know that there are men that I worked with that I managed that left and resigned because they weren't comfortable taking instructions from a woman. And that was something that I had to sit back and reflect on, because equally, I'm not the type of woman that wants to just have females on my team. I know the strengths of having both, but it was just being managed. And I think culturally as well, like you said, if some people aren't exposed to that. So in certain cultures, a woman telling you what to do and expecting certain deadlines from you and actually having those uncomfortable conversations when you are not working towards the standard expected can be very uncomfortable for some men. And I have had people resign for that reason. And that's okay too, Sometimes we have to learn how to work together. And if there's a certain standard as a culture that you don't want to abide by, then I guess that's fine. But it was also a lesson for me where I didn't really see that before. But then,
because you don't only, it's like you say, you don't only want women as part of your team. So in a way, it's being able to be flexible and change, even maybe not change your values and change who you are, but maybe interact differently, approach conversations and questions and even challenges.
And also, I think, in terms of my recruitment strategy, when I'm recruiting people, I'm asking certain questions now that I wasn't asking before. I'm finding out if they are comfortable in this situation, because it's better I know from the onset rather than later on. So you're just changing certain things to make that whole process a lot smoother. Is a learning curve as well.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Sinead, one of your co-hosts.
We know so many of you already watch these conversations, so if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, hit the button now. It really helps this important content to reach even more women around the world and ensures we can keep bringing these conversations to you.
Let's get back into this episode. I think the feminine movement as well over time, I wouldn't say it's got more aggressive, but again, the messages are very strong. It's got aggressive, it's very strong. And I think it makes women struggle to know where their place is and how they should be, what femininity really is, because these days it's like, burn the bra and no one can tell me what to do ever. Even the word submit is like, whoa, can't say that anymore these days. And as Christians, everyone knows that wives submit to your husband, as in the fear of the Lord. And I think I've met so many people that even are like they're in a relationship and they want to get married to someone, but they're like, I can't submit though, or I don't want to submit. And when I actually drill down a lot into what that is, it's a fear to really trust someone. And then when you go deeper, it's father figure, because there was no one to trust. And we have Christ, who's a father to us, who we've learnt to trust. And I'm thinking about really where I got my femininity from, my biblical understanding. And it's firstly from a father who told me who I was, that I'm valuable, that I'm chosen, and that helps me submit in situations, not even just with my husband at work, that the Bible says honor the people in leadership, pray for your boss. Might be crazy, but you've got to pray for them. So do you feel as Christian women, you have the tools within the Bible to understand, your femininity more, to not feel like you have to be masculine? Do we think there's enough in the word for us to find that and not have to basically tear men down in order to do that?
It's interesting because the whole notion of submitting to, in the home, your husband, and at work, leadership, which is your boss. And a lot of the times, in my situation, was a man. For me, you do that when you feel that you are safe. So, if I know that I'm being led and, my husband's direction for his life is submitted to the will of God, I'm going to feel comfortable, my spouse, I'm going to feel comfortable to be led by him, and I can submit to him. But then equally, the Bible also says, you know, love your wife like Christ loved the church. That is the most sacrificial love there is. If I'm being loved that way, why can't I submit? It's going to be very easy. So it's a two-way thing, and I feel like both men and women have a part to play. There's a mutual value exchange here. You bring something to the table, I bring something to the table. If we're both playing our position, we both have something to gain from this. And it's not transactional. It's, you know, us living together, us working together, us collaborating together. It isn't this competition. Ego needs to be put out, taken out of the equation. And a lot of the time it is that, you know, that whole submission is, people think, okay, it's one above the other. And a lot of the time it isn't about that. It's about taking your ego out, put respect in and love in. And even, you know, in the workplace, you have to show an element of love. And I'm not talking about a physical type of love. I'm talking about, you know, agape love. In order for you to work collaboratively with somebody and have a good working relationship. A lot of that isn't happening these days. A lot of relationships are based on transaction, and that's where the problem is.
And it's that being pitted against each other as male and female.
Not only women, men and female.
I think that totally feeds into the intimidation anyway.
100%.
Because I think there's been a pitting against, and it's like you were saying, Jayne, in the middle of kind of that ego, the ego gets brought into it. And again, I think it's what you were saying, Sinead, society has a lot to answer for, because the feminist movement has been so strong, like in the way that it can be. And like, you know, I'm sure we've all got our thoughts on that. I'm not saying all of it's bad, but it almost pits us against each other. I saw something recently and it said, why do we feel to empower women we have to emasculate men? And I was like,
that's so wrong.
So often it's kind of like, is it this or is that? You know, the future is female. It's like, well, the future's male and female. And I get it. I
Since the beginning of creation.
Yes. And I understand where that comes from. I understand there's been all kinds of inequalities. So I'm not being tone deaf and culturally blind. I'm not minimizing that. But I feel like when we think about why men can be intimidated by strong females, I think some of it is just we've been so fed so much rubbish by culture and people's views, whoever shouts the loudest, that sometimes men just step back, they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to interact with certain aspects of our personality, maybe. Doesn't mean it's the full package, but
I always say like the best friend for a man is a woman and the best friend for a woman is a man. I truly believe that. I went to a girls' school, girl code, blah, blah, blah. But like, if some of the really dark times in my life, it was my male friends that were like, you got to get up, chap. Like, I needed that masculine talk. It connected with me in a certain way, you know, and I needed that talk. And because sometimes your female friends are like, oh, it's okay, you're beautiful. And it's like, no, beauty is not going to get me through this situation. I'm gonna need something to fight with this. So just again, like what you're saying about them bringing their strengths into us and us also speaking into them and those sort of things. I mean, even the trend of love languages where everybody's into that, oh, what's your love language? Every man is physical touch and all of this. But actually, when you get to know someone, especially in a marriage, you will learn that a lot of men's love languages are words of affirmation. And that is a skill women have. We can talk. You are the best in the company. You know, you can write that mission statement. You can do that. You go, baby. You can. You know what I mean? And some girls will say, like, again to me, oh, that's cringe. Oh, so okay, you stay with the cringe. I'm trying to get the best out of this man because I've tied myself to him. I've partnered with him, and I need to make sure he's built up so I don't have to work if I don't want to work. You know, and I just wish we taught more about how to build each other up, how to not be ashamed to say, you know, you go for it, I believe in you, rather than saying, oh, I can do it by myself, you're not good enough, or you can't take me where I need to go. We really need to use our words to build and to what God did, to create, to speak life into people. And women have that gift, and I think we need to use it more. We really, really do.
We do.
How do you think we manage it though, where especially in the workplace, because I think it's one thing like thinking about your spouse and your husband, but another thing actually just working with men or working with different people, depending what sector you work work in terms of like working with someone who you feel is intimidated by you, but you have to get on and work with them.
Yeah.
Have you had an experience of that where it's like, how have you managed that when clearly there's a disconnect and you kind of sense, oh, maybe they're a bit intimidated by me. Because there's also being true to yourself.
Yeah.
There's being kind with our words. There's, being willing to change the way we approach things. But we can't change
still who we are.
Fundamentally who and what we are because of somebody doesn't really like it or they're not sure or they feel a little bit intimidated.
Yeah. I've had situations where it's interesting. I was petrified of the person because they were like top person, like in partner, everything. And it was a male. And petrified of them. But actually, now looking back, I think they were scared of me. So they did push me down a lot. They wouldn't give me eye contact. They would rarely like be in a room alone with me. And I just was thinking like, why doesn't this person like me? Like what's wrong with me? And now looking back, I think they were intimidated by who I could become. Because at the time, I didn't know what I was capable of. It was a really tough time. Like my father was not well and my confidence was so low. But I kept thinking, what is it wrong with me that this person won't engage with me? They won't look me in the eyes when I'm speaking to them. When I ask them for feedback on my work, they just give me like one short sentences and things like that. And I was struggling with working with this individual. And someone said to me, how do you think he feels? Maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe you don't know what's going on in his life. And I thought, well, I have a lot of things to say, but sometimes it's hard, as hard as it is, even if someone's giving you a hard time, it's because hurt people. They're going through a hard time. And again, it goes back to that praying for people in leadership who are over you so that the Bible says, so it will be well with you. And it did not get completely easier, but I knew I was doing my part in that. I showed up, I was praying for the person. I was like, Lord bless them, make sure they get a good meal tonight. So maybe, and I felt more peaceful at least. It was so challenging, but I knew I was doing what God had called me to do rather than, oh, okay, we're about to, it's going to bring it like you don't like women and you don't like black women and sort of thing. And I was ready to, I didn't take that fight. I took another fight. I fought with love, spiritually. And spiritually fighting is not praying down the house. It's actually just doing what the word says, which is love people, speak graciously to people. I'm not going to say to let them slap you, but you know what I'm saying. That's a spiritual obedience is actually just applying the word to your life. And it was tough, but to this day I pray for them because one day I might be boss over them. Do you know what I mean? And relationships are funny. Life is funny. Things really come back around.
They turn around,
and how you treat people, people will never forget it.
Yeah, so
people will never forget that.
Yeah.
So,
I think as well, I mean, if you have a calling from God and it's a powerful calling, you have to get comfortable with tests and challenges and obstacles and barriers. Get comfortable with it. It's part of it. It's part of it. And, finding opposition with the opposite sex, unfortunately, sometimes it is part of it. I think honest conversations, as uncomfortable as they are, having them is key. Sometimes you can say to someone, is there an issue?
Yes.
Because I feel like you're coming across.
How do we say that in a good way?
Well,
do we have a problem?
we don't have to take it there, but you just have to find out. I sense that there's a bit of tension between us. Could we have a conversation? And sometimes that person will be so taken aback because you've actually brought it to the table that you're addressing the elephant in the room because we have to work together. And just understanding each other is going to help us work together. And just having those open and honest conversations sometimes is what is needed. Because like we were saying before, especially when I was working in corporate, I was the only black girl there. And people weren't used to being around black people, not because they didn't like them, but they're just not familiar. They don't know how to, they're scared of saying the wrong thing sometimes as well. So they're walking on eggshells, you're walking on eggshells. Sometimes we just need to lay our cards on the table and just know that we're all humans, we're all open, we can be open with one another. Obviously, it might not always be received in the way you want it to, but at least you've tried. At least you've tried. And you make sure that your character remains godly as much as you possibly can. Ask for strength, ask God to renew you, ask God to give you grace, ask God to equip you and give you the tools to deal with these uncomfortable situations, because they're going to come. They're going to come. You just have to get comfortable with uncomfortable situations. You know, the bigger the calling, the greater the test.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
So, Jayne, do you work with your husband?
Yes. So my husband and I, we work together. So different parts of the business. So my husband's a gas engineer. He was a gas engineer, and I had started my business. But during COVID, and that's what we were talking about, different seasons. During COVID, my husband's business went really quiet, and we made a decision for our family for him to join us, family business. So along the line, I've noticed that, you know, collaboration within a marriage is a beautiful thing. You know, alignment and unity, working together can be a beautiful thing. It wasn't an easy transition. It wasn't an easy transition at all. But since then, you know, we've noticed that the business has been able to grow so much, and we were able to open up different subsidiaries of the core business because we pulled our efforts together and we decided to work together. And it's funny because there was a season where, when I left my job in the corporate space, my husband supported me for several years. You know, me, big boss, you know, independent babe. And it goes in swings and roundabouts. That's what marriage is, and that's what relationship is. You know, he supported me for 3 years, and then when I was on my feet and his business went quiet during the pandemic, he decided to jump on board. And it's been a very eye-opening thing for me, a humbling experience for me, because, as I said, he came into an environment where I was established and I called the shots and and now I have to tone myself in a way where I have to recognise that even though we have different remits at work, I need to understand that I'm working in partnership with him now. It's a different way. You know, he was coming into my domain. And it was a very different thing. You know, at home, he's a very masculine type of man. You know, he takes control of what he takes control of. I take control of what I take control of. But ultimately, because we have these clear traditional roles at home, it didn't necessarily transfer into the workplace.
So can you tell us a bit about how that plays out and how it's different kind of at home to work?
So obviously at work, I'm signing a lot of things off. I'm the key decision maker. And he was coming into an environment where at home, he's a significant decision maker. And at work, it was a different dynamic to begin with, until he took more control of certain things. But even that space of challenging each other, you know, him saying, you know, I don't agree with that. And I'm saying, well, I agree with that.
Well, in the workspace,
yeah.
And so, it's like, this is my town.
This is my territory. What are you saying? But it was very, very humbling for me when I say that, in terms of I'm not always right. And I think that's leadership. You know, you have to understand that you have to die to self and do what's best for your team. And also sometimes as well in your relationship and working together as a partnership, you have to understand that it's not always about what you want. It's about what is best for the business and what's best for the relationship and the whole thing together. So,
did you have like meetings sort of when you come back from work and he'd say, oh, by the way, you know, we're at home now? Or did you have to have regular like, okay, time out, like we need to talk? Did you have that when you were?
We had to put certain boundaries in place. So it's like, once we've left the office, we don't want to discuss this at home anymore, so that we can not allow that to spill into home life, because then it affects the dynamic at home as well. And then also being intentional about creating space away from each other, because you live together, you work together, you play together, you do everything together. You need breathing space as well. So doing that also helped. And then just understanding that our strengths are different. My husband's a very practical type of person, and I'm a very theoretical type of person. So just understanding that, look, we're not trying to be bosses in the same thing. His remit is, you know, he's doing X, I'm doing Y. It's very separate and it's very different. So just dividing our remits and making sure that we're clear in what we have to do really, really helped, because there was times where we will be just like this constantly until we learn how to just appreciate what our strengths are and keep to that, basically.
Do you think, I don't know how to say this the best way, but is it for everyone? So are there some couples that it's going to be war? Like, if he comes to work with me, what would be your advice if there are couples that are thinking, you know, let's work together more, but then you know that your husband can't take feedback, so it's not for him.
Or you can't take feedback.
Or me, yeah.
Not you,
Or the wife can't take feedback. What would you advise, like what things you have to keep, values you have to hold dear, you know, in both things? Because you're the leader, and sometimes you can't submit to every idea.
Yeah.
This is not a democracy, right?
Yeah.
This is a situation, you know, so this is a business.
Yeah.
What values do you advise people hold on to if they're married but they're going into business together or some sort of partnership? You know, what would you say to that?
I'd have to say it's not for everyone.
Okay. Yeah.
First and foremost, I'd want you to get letters that Jayne said, get into business behind It's worked for me, but then, like I say, it takes a lot of work.
Okay.
A lot of open, honest, and respectful conversations need to be had. And a lot of patience as well. A lot of patience and understanding that, you know, we both bring something to the table, which is helping the business massively. I think as well, when you stop learning, you stop growing. So learning constantly and investing in ourselves and in our relationship, we have to keep Christ at the center. There are loads of times I've gone to seek counsel from my pastor and said, this isn't working. Like, I need him to come out of this situation because it's toxic. And then realizing that, you know what, my destiny is tied to this man.
Okay.
Sometimes to unlock the blessing within your spouse and the next level for your spouse is also tied to your breakthrough.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You know, he's your helpmate and you've been put together for a reason. So rather than seeing it, as we said before, it's not a him against me, it's a we are one in this situation. Whether there's a hierarchy or not, whether it's my name on the company, it doesn't matter. It's for the benefit of the business, for our family, and for, you know, the service users, our workforce, everything. We're in it together. So just understanding that, look, whatever we're doing, it's not about us. The intent is not for us to be selfish in this. It's not about enlarging in our egos in any way, shape or form. It's what is better for others and not us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you've had to, you know, turn down like yourself in any situation or your natural instincts because you're working with your husband or working with a male that needs to advise you? Do you feel you've had to hold yourself back in any way?
Yeah.
And has that worked for your favour or detriment at any times? I don't know about you, Rachel, if you've had that where you've had to turn yourself down a little bit so that you can receive something, you know?
I think naturally, if you're the type of person where you're used to making key decisions, if you're used to voicing your opinion straight away, and if you start becoming reflective, because as I'm saying, if I haven't been checked before and now suddenly I'm getting checked, it's not going to go down well. Sit well. Let's be honest, you know, it's not going to sit well. But then this is what we're talking about, you know, being graceful and being, you know, exercising the fruits of the spirit that you've been given. You know, am I communicating fairly? Am I showing kindness? Am I demonstrating the love that I want to get back? All these different things that I, you know, put myself in the situation. Would I like it if that were me? So having to change certain things in order for us to work positively together. And then also, like I said, we both have to essentially operate at our highest level.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. We have to operate at our highest level. If we both feel like we're bringing something to the table, then that conversation of what do you bring to the table or what do I have, is not even a consideration. Yeah, because his strengths are different, my strengths are different, but when we come together and we bring all those things together, something amazing happens. And that's what we need to understand more of. Less is this man worthy of dating me or me dating him. We both have something to bring to this situation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we've got a couple of audience dilemmas all around this topic. So Jayne and Sinead, if you want to weigh in on this as well. So someone's written in and they said, I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions at work, motherhood, marriage, and through friendships. I want to give my best in everything and not let anyone down, but this can be at the detriment of putting myself last. It's got me thinking, as women, why do you think we struggle prioritising ourselves?
We both took the same breath.
You go first.
The prioritizing word is what sticks out to me there. I haven't been married for long, but I've always been a busybody. So I've always been pulled in so many different directions. And it's not God that always called me to be busy. Like, sometimes I call myself. I think I've come to a place where prayer is a big thing for me. Like, I have to converse with God a lot to know, am I doing what you've called me to do? Am I just running on my own steam? Am I even relying on you enough? So I think sometimes you have to have that initial conversation with God and with yourself. Like, what is your deepest desire right now? Like, what do you desire the most, you know? And he leads us. He says, you know, actually you need to draw back from this. But I think there are certain things in your life, marriage, children, that these are the first commitments. And sometimes we forget that our homes are where we're called to first. Having parents that were in leadership, one big thing we had in our own principles we had was, no, this is the first ground. Before we go outside and please the world, you have to get it right. First with him, with Christ, and then with our families. So I think that's the basis of where we make our decisions, but listening to where your desires really are, prioritizing for a season. I know so many people that in a season they couldn't work because their children needed them more, or they couldn't be, you know, as social because other things, their prayer life was low. But you have to listen to those things. I think we love being social. Oh, brunch. Oh, here, this women's conference, or running around. Yes, Lord, do you know what I mean? Right, women, we can be so busy, but at the cost of what exactly? You know, at the cost of our relationship with God, our relationship with ourselves. So definitely, I think, firstly, pray about where your priorities lie, and then from there, I think you can prioritise, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think as well, just asking God to just give you the power of discernment, you know, just knowing where to place yourself at every given time. Sometimes you might have the best schedules and best planners for the week, and you just feel like, I'm just running out of steam, I'm burning out. I don't know how to be all these things to all these different people. You just really, really need to submit it to God and ask for strength. And then also ask for destiny helpers.
Yeah.
That's big.
Absolutely.
Yeah, ask for destiny helpers. You know, it could be that neighbour that's cooking for you once a week. It could be taking the kids to your mum. It could be you just checking out and taking a weekend away. Whatever it is, God will give you grace and God will make a way for it to happen. But you have to just really surrender it to him as well. Yeah.
It's really helpful. We've got another one, if that's okay. So there's two conversations going on about being an independent woman. Is it celebrated or shunned? I find it hard to embrace my femininity whilst also having to put on a hard front in life so that I'm actually taken seriously. Is this a tension you felt, and how have you navigated it?
Yeah, it is. It's so funny because I can completely relate to that. I'd be at work sometimes and just have this hard exterior and then go to the toilet and just be breaking out in tears because, I mean, that's our reality, right? Sometimes you have to be so strong in leadership, and sometimes, and the same at home as well, you know, you might be breaking down inside, but the kids' dinners are cooked, husband thinks everything is fine, like, you're breaking down inside, but that is the reality. For me, I think it's always understanding that it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay not to appear a certain way all the time. And this is what we were saying before about, I think society has put us so much in certain boxes that if we express our emotion, we're too weak, we can't handle that thing. If we are too assertive and too bold and too opinionated, we're too aggressive. I think it's just really understanding and regulating your emotions to the point that you're not moved by what your external environment is saying you are. Understanding that the crown that you possess isn't shifted based on what this person says I am, or what my bills are saying, or what my boss is saying. You have to be really centered and root your identity in Christ. That way you won't just be shifted to pillar to post all the time. Because it's easy to just go where the wind is blowing you, let's be honest. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
Really good.
I feel like we've been bamboozled, right? Growing up with Destiny's Child and all my women who independent. I don't know why I was shouting that song, because we get bamboozled by this independent. No one is an island.
No.
Nobody. Like, there are so many people that come together to make me who I am, or have come together to make us
or
who
pour
we
into
are.
you.
Exactly. And so the message is not independent woman. I think it's just who you depend on.
Yeah.
I depend on God for everything. The more I grow in Christ, the more I need him. The more I want to be, this next best thing. I have to look for examples for people that have gone ahead of me. Look at these examples of people that have gone through difficult times. So the independent thing is getting a bit redundant to me because that's okay. It takes strength to admit your weaknesses and say, I can't do this. And that word help that you just said is like, I only really discovered help 2 years ago.
Right?
Help
Why is
me.
that?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I found it so hard to ask for help.
Yeah. Is it the fear of being disappointed, or
I didn't think I needed it. Not want to burden people that your life is great.
Yeah.
Why do you need help?
Yeah.
When really, as you grow in life, you take on more things.
Yeah.
So you're gonna need help.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that, So I'm really like, H-E-L-P, like, help me.
Exclamation mark.
Like a man on a beach, like with a
SOS.
SOS. That is life going forward for me. And I'm okay. If you think I'm weak.
Yeah.
Let me be weak so that,
Mm.
I can be supported, so God can be God and he can be strong, So I just love asking for help now and not saying I'm going to be an independent woman or what I'm not going to be is a victim.
No.
Because Jesus did not die for me to go around saying, woe is me.
Yeah.
So I watch myself talk. When I'm starting to say I'm tired all the time, I need to close my mouth because that I'm not a victim.
It's taking accountability as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you know yourself better than anyone.
Yeah.
And the more time you spend building yourself up and spending time with yourself and knowing that, look, when I'm tired, I don't even need to broadcast it. I know I'm tired. And I need to know what I need to do to make myself okay.
Yeah.
I feel like when people rely on others too much as well, it can be an issue because no one can really know how to love you if you don't love yourself. You need to pour into yourself. And I think the more time you spend with your creator, the more time it becomes clear to you, the clarity in terms of how to build yourself up and what you need is clear,
Yeah,
that's
so true. Jayne, this has been so good.
Yeah.
And Sinead, thank you.
Thank you.
Where can we find you online, Jayne, as a community? Is there anything we can support you in that you're doing at the minute? You mentioned your charity earlier.
Yes, I've got quite a few projects I'm working on at the moment. I've got a business called Brown Skin Girls Network where we promote and uplift women in senior leadership positions. I'm also launching a vodka brand as well.
What?
Yeah. So in June we'll be launching that. And my core business is where I'm doing my housing, my property stuff, my care homes. Yeah. So there's a lot going on and we thank God for that.
And we can follow you on Instagram?
Yes, Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Love from Jay.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank
This has
you
been
so
really
much.
helpful
Thank
and
you, Jayne.
encouraging too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's conversation. We hope you gleaned as much from it as we did.
If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all of our episodes at the Magnify Conversations.
And if you have a story to share and would like to be featured on the conversations, get in touch with Team Magnify through magnifycollective.com and head over to our contact form.
We'll see you next Monday for another installment. From all of our team and crew, see you next week.